All right, well, here we are. We are almost at the end of our first week together. And so this is basically how it always happens. I'm just going to be really, really frank and straightforward with you. There's always a lot of confusion when it comes to the first week. And that's okay. Totally okay. Here's one of the things that I do intentionally in this first week. I really want to embrace the fact that there is a lot of confusion, there is some uncertainty. There's perhaps even a little bit of anxiety, and I don't mean to cause anxiety, but I want us to have even just an inkling, if you will, of what it's like when someone is going through a career called a crisis. Someone is looking for career direction, coaching, counseling of some sort when it comes to career. There are so many voices out there regarding this career development space, this career strategy. Everyone's got a different opinion. Everyone's going to, tell you to write a resume one way or a cover letter another way. They're going to say that you need to practice this for interviewing. You need to, apply for jobs this way. It's all about who you know, not what you know. And it's on and on. I mean, the noise in this space of career development is so exhausting, I would say, but also there's a little kind of it can be something that causes some anxiety, and I don't mean that like, oh my gosh, but it's well, so the kids are saying these days, right? The struggle is real. So, but I'm very for good or bad, I'm very intentional in how I approach the first week of this class, because I want you to feel even just a twinge of what the potential client with whom you might be working is experiencing and feeling and dealing with as they're going through this career search process. It's very nerve-wracking. It's very challenging. It's very hard. I remember the whole reason I got into this work, dating back to 2007, and I think I've got a couple students that I've had before, I have a relationship with, I know from previous courses or what have you. The reason I got into this work is because in the summer of 2007, I started one of the more, if not most, challenging experiences of my life. I applied for, in 9 months, a total of 217 different jobs. I had a graduate degree. I had multiple years of experience. I mean, I had a couple interviews at my previous institution. I thought for sure I was going to get the jobs. I had no reason to think that I wouldn't get a job quickly with my education and my experience and so forth. And it was perhaps the most challenging time of my kind of my professional, definitely of my adult life. But even then, that's, I say that, I'm listening to myself say that out loud. I know that a number of people experience things far more challenging than I did. But for me, it was incredibly challenging. And, one of the things I know we're not supposed to do is tell people how they should or should not feel. But I can tell you, I felt just beat up, bedraggled, depressed, frustrated, angry at times, sad. I mean, all these emotions were going on in my mind. And I didn't know where to look. I didn't know what sort of a professional I could turn to. I didn't know there were people out there that existed in this career space that could help me. And so I kind of just was flailing. I was just, like a fish out of water, not even sure really what to do. And if you think about the process and how we work in our world today, the conversations that we have, the questions that are asked, when we meet somebody for the first time, hey, my name is Jeff. Oh, I'm Peter, or I'm Julia. Oh, and what's the next question? The next question is, what do you do? And we don't say, what do you do for work? We just have this understanding that in asking that question of what do you do, what we're meaning is, what do you do for work? And so we're in this space where we are just kind of conditioned to think that way. What if you don't have something that you do for work? What if you're, quote unquote, in between jobs? Or you've just been laid off, and now all of a sudden someone's asking you that very question, and you don't really know how to answer that question. It can be very challenging. And so for me, when I finally regained full-time permanent employment, I said, and I kid you not, I said this was 2008 when I got my job after those 217 applications. I said that I was going to do whatever I could to help people not to have to make. First of all, I did make some. Well, I shouldn't say some. I made a lot of mistakes. Not to make the same mistakes that I made, and not to have the same challenges and hardships that I experienced. Now, I learned, and I actually am very grateful. I praise the Lord, I praise God that He allowed me to experience what I did. It humbled me, it taught me a number of things, and it got me into this work, and here I am 11 years later, doing the very work that I didn't know existed, helping people figure out what it is they want to do for work, why it is they may be unhappy in their current job, what do they want to do next, how do they get there, right? And I've been teaching this class. In fact, I'm teaching another course and another graduate program concurrently in understanding vocation. And so I'm, again, I've mentioned that I'm bridging the kind of the best of both career development and vocation and calling. And I get to do that because I'm not just kind of theoretically spewing out these ideas. I've lived it. I am living it. I've experienced the other side. And so as we kind of venture into this course together, and you have all of these unknown questions, you don't have an opportunity to come face to face in class and meet and ask questions and say, hey, Professor Boyne, can you help me understand this? There can be, again, some anxiety and not really knowing where to go. Or you send an email and you go, wait a second, why is that email not being responded to? Is he ignoring me? Is he not paying attention? All those different questions now in your mind that you don't have the same proximity in face-to-face and so forth. So it can become challenging. But I want us to, as best as we can, realize that what we're experiencing may very well be similar to that which our potential clients experience, or I would say are experiencing. So it gives us a bit more empathy. Okay, so that's really the purpose there. So if you're behind, your books came late, this first week there's a little bit of grace in that, right? So if you're not caught up yet, I'm more than happy to extend in a couple additional days. I can't extend much more, and for the remainder of the 8-week term, you've got to be on time. And if you're not on time for these next 7 weeks out of the 8-week term, you will not get the points. That's just how it works. Like if you don't get, there's too much to do in too short of an amount of time to not do the work or get behind, right? I've had some students ask, can I work ahead? You can, though it's not ideal, because I know that when I've tried to work ahead, I've had other students that have worked ahead, you forget what you're supposed to be focused on. You forget to engage in conversation. It can be a bit overwhelming to try and work ahead, especially if you're, well, I was going to say, in addition to the idea that if you're behind, if you're not just kind of in the moment, in the sweet spot, which is why my preference is that you really just focus on the here and the now, okay? I've had a number of questions as far as due dates, and some of the due dates are off and different things. What you need to pay attention to is what's due in each module, okay? So if you're looking at due dates somewhere else, don't look in the assignments, look in the modules, okay? So right now we are currently in Module 1. Module 1 corresponds 1-to-1 with exactly what's assigned in the syllabus, okay? But if you say, but there's other due dates for other case studies, don't worry about those, okay? What you need to worry about is what's in Module 1, okay? Next week, Module 2. Following week, Module 3, and so forth. This is why I hesitate to say, yes, go ahead and work ahead, because then you get mixed up as far as what's due when. I would really strongly encourage you just focus on Module 1 this week and in the corresponding weeks in each module. So 2, week 2, 3, so forth, right? So, and I'll fix some due dates in there. There's going to be some imperfections along the way, but what you need to know is that what is due is only what you see in each of the modules assigned for that week. Okay, and then those modules, like I said, correspond exactly with what's in the syllabus. So please focus only on that. The other thing I'll mention is my approach to grading and feedback is that I will give you as much as you need to get to explain why you got the grade that you received. Okay, so for instance, when you write your first paper, which is due next week, so remember your assessment results are due this Sunday from the Well-Being Index. They are due this Sunday at midnight. Okay, it's Saturday afternoon. You have the next basically day and a half to complete the Well-Being Index, the assessment. In the back of the book, it's got a code in the back of what should have been a brand new book. You take the assessment online, just the results are due in a separate upload worth 3 points tomorrow at midnight. The paper, in response to the assessment, is due next Sunday by midnight. Okay, so the index, the assessment results due tomorrow night, Sunday at midnight. The paper due next Sunday at midnight. Okay. So when I say that, what I'm saying to you that's important for you to keep in mind when I say the feedback is I'm going to give you enough feedback to say, yes, you did exactly what I was asking you to do, or you didn't. I'm not going to give you copious notes on spelling or grading. I'm going to give you an overarching response, okay? If you would like more feedback, I need you to hear me and hear me clearly. If you would like more feedback, you can ask for it. Don't assume that I used to spend, and I kid you not, I was teaching multiple sections of this class, and I'd sit and I would take hours and hours and hours in the evening grading papers. And it just, the payoff in that was not worth it. So I would spend literally 3 hours to grade one paper because it was so poorly written, and the student wouldn't even look at the feedback. And so I came to a conclusion that if you would like more feedback, you can ask for it, okay? But here's the deal, and I'm big on respect. I will offer you respect. I need you to offer in return respect to me as your faculty member, especially. I'm your instructor of record, so email correspondence can be really a bit touch and go as far as the kind of the how I read into it. So I had a student one time who said at the end of the semester, they said, it would have been nice for you to give us more feedback. Why don't you just tuck that away for the future? And you can imagine there was a number of things that were going through my mind how I could have responded. Now I did, and I said thank you so much for your feedback. But I felt that was so disrespectful how this student was talking to their professor. Right? There is this relationship between student and faculty, and I try not to have a divide there as the haves and the have-nots, or the low, whatever those things are. Right? That's not it. But there is a respect level there. So I expect you to respect me, and you can expect me to respect you. And that is probably the most obvious place that takes place is by way of communication. So please be careful how you communicate with me and with others in this class, because while you may not mean it, maybe you do, but you may not mean it, but people can read things in different ways than perhaps you've written things. There's actually an app that you can get on your computer called Grammarly, which helps with your spelling, your grammar, and I just found that it actually helps with, there's some, machine learning or artificial intelligence that actually can read through your message, which is kind of creepy, and it tells you what sort of emotion is sensed in what's been written, right? So I wrote one the other day, and it said the emotional sense that we get from what you just written is neutral, right? There's no emotions. It was just here's some information that you need. Please read this information. So be careful with what you say and how you say it, because it could be taken in the wrong way. All right. So again, just to recap. This was hopefully a good week for you to kind of get a feel for things, how this online class works. If you have questions, which I fielded a number of questions, hopefully you've gotten those responses. If you're behind, I'm going to give you a couple of extra days to get caught up, but not much more than that. Okay, so Wednesday of next week is the cutoff to be caught up. Okay, so if you didn't post anything in response to the Wednesday deadline, go ahead and write that today. Even though it's late, I'll still give you credit for that. And then you could engage with your classmates between now and Sunday. There's 2 of those due. You'll be fine, okay? Next week, though, starting on Sunday, or I'm sorry, on Monday of next week, everything needs to be on point with the due dates and all of that, okay? Careful with how you communicate with one another. Electronic correspondence can also be a bit dicey and just kind of tricky, so be cognizant of that as you're communicating with folks. And remember that you only have to focus on what is due in the module itself, okay? Don't click on discussions, don't go off into bunny trails, just click on the content required in the module that corresponds with the week in which we are, okay? So this next week, I'll post another video on Monday. I'll share much more information. I'm going to give you a great kind of case study analogy, if you will, kind of a vignette as far as why I believe career development is so important in the clinical counseling and psychology space because I think it connects and relates so much, so powerfully. I'm excited to do that. All right. Have a great weekend.